the first two chapters of this book I found to be absolutely riveting, but I also found them harrowing. And there are some harrowing scenes throughout the book, but none that are more harrowing almost than the first two chapters. And when they were finished, I think that I sort of sat down and I gasped, because I think the full horror of what actually happened in that house in that morning is encapsulated in those first desperate two chapters. And although if the book is graphic throughout, there's huge amounts of background information as well that you're going to get. But the first two chapters, I think, were absolutely harrowing. And one of the scenes that affected me so deeply, because I think it's very easy to forget the tragedy that had just happened, and in fact that's the way you end the book, the tragedy that we're talking about. So in a way we're distancing ourselves, I think, a little bit from what actually happened in that lavatory. And the thing that really brought it through to me in those first two chapters was when Oscar was carrying Reeva down the stairs. And he obviously was in a terrible state. Her hair was soaked with blood, but it was leaving the hair that was dripping, but it left fine hair marks on the handrail. And somehow it just got to me. I was almost tearful when I was reading that, because it was so close to the tragedy that had just happened.
What we tried to do in the first, in the opening chapter, was to really take you into the house figuratively and through the crime scene. And for me, I was very mindful throughout the process of writing this book of keeping Reeva center and present. In fact, in the days after she was killed, I wrote a piece for Daily Maverick saying, when the media circus moves on, Reeva Steenkamp will still be dead. And I think that there is the risk with the story of it becoming very Oscar-centric, and also of us as a country, and just watching this as spectators, because it's been broadcast live on TV, of becoming very emotionally detached from the story. It does become quite factual, referring to the accused and the deceased during a trial. It becomes very much about the evidence. And what we wanted to do in the opening scene was to firstly take you into the house and put you there and create that visual picture of what happened, but also remind you of the human tragedy of what has happened here, because it really is about, it's a tragedy. It really is, and it's not merely just a story that we're reporting on.
This was very interesting to me, and possibly I don't understand it fully, but we're talking about that terrible lavatory where Reeva was mortally wounded. And we've seen the photographs, and the book does have photographs in it. It does also have maps in it, so you can kind of walk through the different rooms and you can see where different things happened. But we've got a very good idea of where she was when she got the final wound, which one assumes was the head wound. Why do we care whether there was water running into the bowl or not? What is the importance of that, and should it have come up in the trial?
Well, this is one of the big questions that was asked early on, because Oscar Pistorius' version was, in hindsight, that he believed that Reeva had gone to the bathroom to relieve herself. So everyone was asking, well, did she flush the toilet? And Mandy and I have approached forensic experts, and they've had a look at the photos, and the answer to the question is, according to them, yes, she did. And if you look at a timeline of events of when this took place, Reeva would have flushed the toilet just before she got shot 4 times.
Was that the noise that he heard?
It's possible. But if you look at the timeline of events, and this is according to a forensic expert, Reeva would have flushed the toilet, the shots would have started firing through, she falls backwards, she's over the toilet when she receives that last shot to the head which kills her, but the last little bit of water that's coming out, if you can think of the water tapering off slowly, and if you go look in the book, and you'll see the photographs there, if you look inside the bowl, it looks like a candy cane between the red stripes of the blood and the white of the porcelain. And that's where the last little bit of water was running out of the cistern and washed away that blood. The flushing could not have happened after the shots, because if you look on the bottom right-hand side of the bowl, you will see little fine splinters which could only have been picked up with the bullets passing through the door. So based on that, now why this is potentially significant to the cases, if Oscar had said in his version that he had heard a flushing sound, that could have undermined his version of believing there was an intruder. The question was being asked, well, if somebody had flushed the toilet, surely you cannot believe that the robber would hide himself in there and flush the toilet. People were asking the same question, surely you didn't believe that a robber had locked himself in there. These were the questions being asked. So that was the possible. We're not saying it is. Let's be clear here. The other side of it, why didn't the state mention a flushing toilet? Why didn't it come up there? Well, speculation again, and these are according to forensic experts, is that if the state had mentioned a flushing toilet, this then would have undermined the version that they were pursuing, which was the fight between Oscar and Reeva, and her ultimately locking herself in the toilet. It would have supported his version that she had gone there to relieve herself.
So the current thinking is that you postulate in the book is that Reeva does go to the toilet. She hears Oscar shouting. I mean, she goes to the toilet. She hears Oscar shouting. She locks the door because he sounds alarmed, and then that's when it happens. It could not have been Oscar flushing the toilet himself by accident.
No, not according to the evidence. And like I said, it's those fine specks of wooden splinters that have settled on the inside of the toilet bowl, that if it had been flushed post-shooting, because remember, it's not in dispute that door was shot through first before it was broken down. Those fine splinters indicate that the flushing could not have happened after the shooting. It could only have been before.
And the point also to make is the fact that this was never raised as evidence in the trial. And we made a point of speaking to experts from the forensic experts from the prosecution, from the defense, and a variety of experts who are independent, who are following the trial, who we got comment from and included in the book. And we've presented really what they've said and their findings. And they raised several questions about this and why it wasn't led as evidence during the trial.